Today I was thinking about being a dad all day long. I was thinking about the choices I've made and how I parent. Am I doing it right or am I doing a good job? What can I do to do better? All kinds of things, right? I was working by myself all day, so I had a lot of time with my thoughts, and that's what I think about when I have time with my thoughts about my family, my fiance, my kids, my parents. Am I doing enough? Am I being enough? I always think if you guard them from everything, they won't be ready for anything. I try to make sure that I'm not being a helicopter dad myself, because sometimes I'll be like, oh no, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. What you end up with really is just a child who's trying to do it when you're not paying attention. Kids are always going to explore, they're going to be curious, they're going to want to know. Now, of course, you got to make sure that they're not doing something that's going to really hurt them or cause like a problem or risk their life or anything like that. Like, of course you've got to be paying attention and making sure that your kids are okay, but at the same time, little things like, hey, don't grab that cat, she might scratch you. If they don't listen, let them grab the cat. You know, you gotta trust that they're listening to you and that they're doing what you said, right? You can't just hover over them constantly correcting every little mistake. You should help them as much as possible to learn from your mistakes, but then you have to allow them to learn from their own mistakes also. You can't protect them from everything, and if you do, they won't be ready for the real world when nobody's stopping all the bad from getting them. Anyway, let's get into Consequences of Overprotected Children by Jordan Peterson, and let's see what he's got to say.
Most children now have older parents, right? Because people aren't having children until they're in their 30s. And there's a big difference between having a parent who's in his or her 30s and having a parent who's in his or her 20s.
Yep.
The 20-year-olds are still kind of like kids.
True. I had my son 5 years ago when I was 30. And I was a little older, I was more structured, I was able to give more, so I had to be a little more careful about giving too much.
And they're going to be more usefully neglectful, I would say. Well,
and you know, when he's saying that, that sounds terrible, right? But meaning to stay out of their way and let them do and learn for themselves rather than trying to do for them all the time. Because if you're constantly trying to do for them and protect them, then you're not letting them really experience the world. You're sheltering, you're building a wall around them and not letting anything get to them and not letting them experience things that they should experience.
Look, one of the things we used to do with my daughter when she was very little was, when she was about a year and a half, is we'd have her in a room alone, and she would usually complain about that for a few minutes, and then
I bet she would complain about it. You left a 1.5-year-old kid in her room by herself? Get it, like teaching her to be independent, to teach her to, occupy her own time, I guess. But depending on the time frames, that's a little wild to me.
Find a way to amuse herself, She liked to take books out of shelves and put them back in. And like, if you let her get through that initial bit of misery, then she would learn how to regulate herself, and she got very good at that.
Right, yeah. They'll learn to do things that they want you to do normally. If they're sitting in there, their curiosity is going to get the best of them, and they're going to start learning how to act without somebody constantly being there on top of them to help them, or somebody constantly being there to reach out to them. I get what he's saying.
And so that's a good example of minor privation having a positive influence. But children used to have multiple siblings, and siblings toughen you up because there's tremendous competition in families among siblings, and they had younger parents who had fewer resources, and now parents are...
That's definitely true. I mean, you can see the difference in people, right? When you have somebody who has a couple brothers or even a brother and sisters versus somebody who didn't. Or my son and my stepson, thankfully, they have each other and they're going through the levels at the same time, so they'll go through everything directly together. Even if they do clash sometimes, they brothers and they love each other.
They're older, first of all, and second, they're more resource rich, and so they're more likely to schedule their children to death in some sense to provide them with all the opportunities that they feel would be useful.
You don't want to override your child. You don't want them to feel like they have to perform all the time and they have to be doing something. You want them to be motivated to do things that they want to do, and you want to help them do that. You want to keep them going down the path of righteousness and build and become the best them that they can be. That's what you want for your children in the end, right? Push them in the directions they want to go already, and you'll see huge leaps and bounds versus pushing them in the directions that you want them to go.
Understandable. And plus, because they have fewer children, each child is in some sense more precious. Not like if you have 10 children, you don't love all of them, but there's 10 of them. There's only so much excess attention that can go around. And
time is a big thing, really. I mean, I don't know how people did it with all the kids back in the day, but me with the two and then my fiance.
They do a lot of socializing each other rather than being socialized by parents. But if you only have one child, you're going to devote.
They're definitely right. When it's just me and my son here, it's like constant attention needed. When you're alone with the child, you have both of them here together, then they entertain each other. They forget about you almost sometimes. It's like, hey, can I play? It's so much easier when you have them together versus when you have them just alone.
Put all your resources to providing them with absolutely everything you can provide them with, and one of the dangers of that is that you'll overprotect them and you'll provide them with too much.
You want to give. You want them to not want for anything, but at the same time, you don't want to spoil them and make them feel like they're just entitled to things for no reason because, hey, at some point, you can't provide every single thing that they ever want in life, or they need to get out and get it on their own, and they need to be motivated to make something of themselves and be somebody. And if you just give, then they'll never feel that way. So you need to be making them earn rather than give.
We don't understand those dynamics, right? We don't understand how much you should stay hands off your kids and let them go out there and make their own mistakes and find their own way. And
that's definitely a question for me. Like, I'm always thinking about it. Like, hey, am I doing too much or am I not being there enough? How can I be better? Will I be better if I get more involved, or will I be better if I back off a little and give them a little more space? It's a never-ending question, right?
That's tricky, and we're ignorant about it. And so I think one of the consequences of that is that we do have a reasonable percentage of young people, maybe young adolescents, the kind that you hear about at university, who have been overprotected and overscheduled and
Don't we know it? Oh man. The first overprotected class was the millennials, and people thought that we were bad. But now it's Gen Z. Gen Z's coming in. These are like the ultra protected kids who just have never been told no, have always been handed everything. And then these people are nutty. Wow. They think that they should be able to be a cat if they want to. But hey, whatever floats your boat, I guess. If it don't affect me, I don't care. But I'm going to say it's crazy if it's crazy, right?
They're challenged in some sense. And so they're not very resilient. And then, of course, what's happening in the universities, the safe spaces and the trigger warnings and all of that.
What y'all think about safe spaces, huh? Let me know in the comments what y'all feel about safe spaces.
And there's good recent research on this. Trigger warnings clearly make things worse rather than better.
Trigger warnings just tell people, hey, this is probably going to make you upset. It's okay to complain about it in the comments. Aside from like flashing light trigger warnings and stuff, I'm talking about your feelings trigger warnings. I'm not going to put a trigger warning up because I'm talking about the way I washed my car last week and it's different from the way you do it, so you might get triggered. Anything you say can be triggering to somebody, so you might want to put up a trigger warning that you're going to say whatever you're going to say before you say it. That way they can not get upset when you say it because you said it already.
Helpful. It's hard though, because as I said, when you have resources, you can use them to make your children's lives, let's say, easier. But the question is, like, do you really want to make the life of someone you love easier? And that's an incredibly difficult question.
Of course, I want to make my child's life easier, but I also don't want to make it so easy that he never has to put in effort. I want him to be able to put in the effort to get the job done. I want him to be able to put in the effort to be the best person he can be. I want him to be able to put in the effort to do the things he wants to do and do them well. Do them very well. Do them to the best of his abilities. I want him to be the person he can be. I want to give him a platform to grow from. I want both boys to be able to grow and be the best version of themselves. I want them to start from where I can help them start from, not from down here where I started from. Put them on this level and they don't have to go through these trials and tribulations down here, then they can grow higher than I ever was. And that's what we want for our children the most, right? To be better than we ever were. That's what I want for my children. I'm sure that's what you want it for your children too. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you agree with and disagree with. Put it down in the comments below. Like the video if you enjoyed watching it. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. And have a great day.